We're learning the Sikha, the second Sikha on Parshas Masei, in Chelek Chav Gimel on page 229. This is also the last Sikha of this Krach in Lakuta Sikhis. The Shir today is being learned to Nishmas Rabbi ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. Bescheiches mit dem Zoll von Schneus Chaye Aaron Kain, was wird erzählt in Aposik b'fnei Atzmai b'Parshas Seno. In connection with the number of years of the lifetime of Aaron HaKayim, which is related in this week's parsha in a separate pasuk, and it says, "Va'Aaron ben Sholish ve'Esrim u'ma'as shana b'Masei b'Hor." That Aaron was 123 years old when he passed away on the mountain Hor HaHor. Steht in Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi says regarding this, "Meya ve'Esrim v'Sholish pamim." This is corresponding to 123 times. She'Yisrael oinen halaluka, that you respond with the word halaluka by amiras halal, when halal is said, as will be specified in the sikha here, the details of how halal was said in those times with responding 123 times halaluka, keneged shneisav shalaran. So this number of saying 123 times halaluka and halal is like the number of years of Aaron's life. Now, what is the kesher von aniyas halaluka mit shneisav shalaran? What is the connection of answering and saying halaluka and halal with the life of Aaron HaKayim? Is the Yerushalmi mevayer. So the Yerushalmi says halaluka, halalu kel b'kotche. Halaluka, we see in Tilim also in the pasuk that we're praising the Eibishter, which is holy, which is related to Aaron. La'Aaron kedoshay, la'Aaron kedosh Hashem. Aaron, the one that was holy, the Aaron holy one, the one that was holy for Hashem, serving in the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore it's related to Aaron. Das heißt, as the Hillel von der Eibishten is verbunden mit Aaron Kedosh Hashem. Praising Hashem is connected to Aaron, which is the Kedosh Hashem, holy, dedicated to Hashem. V'yeshteit halalu kel b'kotche, as seen in the pasuk quoted before, halalu kel b'kotche. That's the connection. The Kedusha of Aaron and the Kedusha of Hashem, whom we praise in halal. Now, from them gufe, from this itself, was the Yerushalmi verbindt amiras kuf chav gimel pa'amim halaluka keneged shneisav shalarin mit dem pasuk halalu kel b'kotche. The Yerushalmi connects the number of Aaron's life to the number of times that we say halaluka and halal to the pasuk of halaluka b'kotche, as the Hillel dav zayin b'kotche, that you praise the Eibishter in holiness, in connection to Hashem's holiness, is move on, so it's understood as the shayches von Aaron to amiras halal, the connection of Aaron and the number of the years of his life to saying halal is nit bloyes an inyan from mispar. It's not just the connection that happens to be the same number. Because beide is misparam kuf chav gimel, they are both the number of 123. But this bloyes an inyan chitzeni, the fact that they happen to have the same number is an external connection. Nor, however, as we see here from the Yerushalmi, es is farana zwischen ze a shayches and teichen. There's a connection between Aaron and his lifetime and saying halal in the content of these two things. Amiras halal dav zayin verbunden mit kotche. Saying halal is connected to praising the Eibishter in his holiness. Velech is inyanai shel Aaron, which is also what Aaron represents. V'adarabe, das is the sibbe of them, was they gleichen sich aus and sehr cheshben. Because there's a deeper connection between Aaron and saying halal in the kedusha. That's the reason why there's also the connection in the number that it's both 123. It's a result of the real and deeper connection and content of the two. Davon verstehen, so therefore what we need to understand here is, was is the shayches von aniyas halaluka b'halal mit Aaron? If, as the Yerushalmi implies, that there's a deeper connection in the content of Aaron and his life and saying halal, what is that deeper connection in saying halal and Aaron HaKayim? Oster this concept here brought in Yerushalmi as the kuf chav gimel pamim halaluka zene keneged shneisav shalarin, 123 times saying halaluka corresponds to the lifetime of Aaron. Vet gebracht in Sefer Rambam. It's also brought in the Rambam in the halachis von amiras halal, was hat reingestellt in Hilchas Chanukah. It's brought in the halachis of saying halal, which the Rambam places in the halachis of Chanukah. B'shas red wegen dem minig von amiras halal, when the Rambam speaks about the custom of how halal was said, b'mei chachamim arishonim, in the times of the earlier sages. V'zel l'shainai, and this is what the Rambam says. And this is the description here of the saying halal in those times, and here we'll understand what's this inyan of responding halaluka 123 times. Achar shemevarach hagadol shemakres halal, after the one that's the Gadol, meaning the one that's the Shliach Tzibur, the Chazan that makes the bracha when he comes to read Hallel, Maschal v'omer Hallelujah. So he begins Hallel, and it starts with the word Hallelujah. And the Chol Ha'am, all the people that are listening, Oinen Hallelujah, they respond with Hallelujah. And he continues saying the Mizmor of the Hallel, V'chayze v'omer Hallelu Avdei Hashem, and the Chol Ha'am Oinen Hallelujah. And everybody listening responds again with Hallelujah. And then V'chayze v'omer Hallelu Hashem Hashem, and he continues with the next piece of the Mizmor of the Hallel, and V'chol Ha'am Oinen Hallelujah. And everyone responds Hallelujah. And then V'chayze v'omer Hishem Hashem v'vayrech matav adoilam, and V'chol Ha'am Oinen Hallelujah. And everyone responds to that again, Hallelujah. V'chein al kol davar. And this is the way the tzibur, the people that are listening to the Shliach Tzibur saying Hallel, respond with Hallelujah for every piece in Hallel that's said to praise Hashem. Ad shenimtzu oinen b'chol ha'Hallel Hallelujah meya v'sholish v'esrim pamim. Comes out that when you're finished saying all of Hallel, you respond 123 times with the word Hallelujah. Simin lahem shnoisav shalarin. And here the Rambam brings this simin that the 123 is like the years of Aaron HaKohen's life. Now, davon verstehen, so on the Rambam, the question here is, si zidua as the Sefer Yad HaChazaka LaRambam is a Sefer von Halachas Halachas. The Rambam writes only things that are relevant for halacha. The says that brengt besifroi blois in yoni halacha unit in yoni drush or the sipur dvarim. The Rambam does not include in his Sefer anything that is history, stories, just halacha. Ubelashon HaYavitz, to quote the Yavitz, udvarim she'en yotzimem din ma'adinim. If there's any subject that is not an actual halacha that comes out from it, v'loi muser, v'hanhogev, yidia, hatzricha, or anything that is relevant for a custom to know how one should conduct himself, ein medarkezal le'tafu b'em b'chibur zeh. It's not the Rambam's derech, it's not his way of bringing it here in this Sefer, in the Sefer Hayad. If so, the question here is l'shema brengt er otem simen. Why does the Rambam bring this siman that Yerushalmi says 123 like the lifetime of Aaron HaKohen? But Pashtus is the tam von a siman of zu helfen gedenken. Simply, a siman is to remember, to help you remember a certain number. In our case, to remember how many times you say Hallelujah and you respond to the Shliach Tzibur and Hallel. That you need a siman when it's a number that's not common. So therefore, it would be simple why the Rambam is bringing this number, because it's negei la halacha to know how many times you have to respond Hallelujah, and therefore you have a siman to help you remember this. Aber es ist schwer zu sagen, as bloß der Fall bringt es der Rambam. It's difficult to say that this is the only reason why the Rambam quotes the connection to the life of Aaron. Was es nicht darke shal Rambam besifra yad hachazaka zu geben simonim of gedenken dem misparim welcher bringt. Because it's still not the derech of the Rambam, in any other case when there are numbers that are also not common, to bring some kind of a sign to help you remember these numbers. So if the Rambam doesn't do it usually otherwise, so then why here does he? Is the far mistavet zu sagen. Therefore it's more logical to say, as der siman is eicha halacha, that with the Rambam giving us this siman, that it's connected to the life of Aaron, this itself is also a halacha that will help us understand what exactly is this concept of saying Hallelujah 123 times. So the point to explain this is as follows. Mit dem Bringen dem Simen, by the Rambam quoting this Simen, is the Rambam oisen zu andeuten der Geder von Aniyas Hallelujah. By this, the Rambam is implying to us, or is explaining, how we define the answering of Hallelujah when the people answer that when they hear from the Chazan, the Hallel. And that is, as die alle Kuf Chav Gimel Pamim, was man darf eine sein Hallelujah, stellen zusammen ein Inyan. That answering Hallelujah 123 times is not each one a separate praise and a separate thing for itself, but it all makes up one saying of Hallel, comes together as one thing, combined by 123 times saying Hallelujah. Bedugmas Schneusel von ein und demselben Menschen. Just like it is with the lifetime of one person, that there's all the years of his life, but it makes up the life of one person, so too here there are all the times you say Hallelujah, but it makes up one Hallel. And therefore from this you understand how important it is to be careful to say Hallelujah all of the times, because if you miss even once, felt in the shleimus from the minyan. You're lacking in the fullness of saying Hallel. Es muss sein, the full mispah from Kuv Chav Gimel Aniyas. You must have the full number of answering 123 times. Which represents something unique in the full time, in saying Hallel fully with answering Hallelujah 123 times, corresponding to the life of Aaron. So therefore this is a halacha. It's actually relevant to understand that it's not that you say Hallel and you can answer 100 times, 90 times, and you get a certain portion of the Hallel. The point is 123 is what the Hallel is. It represents a special teichen, and therefore it's important to say every single time the full 123 times Hallelujah. What's the asbara from them? What's the explanation for this? As the kuf chav gimel pa'amim anias Hallelujah zem na'alet zusammen ein inyan, that 123 times all represent one Hallel, one inyan here. Additionally, what has to be explained there, vibalt as the siman is shneis of shalarin. If the sign for this is the life of Aaron, is the full move on as das is verbunden mit inyane shel Aaron. So it's understood that this is related to who Aaron HaKohen was and what he represents. Was is the shaychus? What is that connection of saying Hallel to Aaron HaKohen? Das verstehen, so we'll understand this by Hektim, Shittas Rambam, Beseder Amiras Hallel, by first explaining the Rambam's opinion and how Hallel is said, as it was in those times, as the Rambam says by the Chachamim Arishonim. Was schreibt, benegayet dem minig ha'ama, was is given by Chachamim Arishonim, as the Rambam says, and concludes after he explains this custom as it was done in those times, Zeh hu minig harishain uboy roi leilech. This was the first custom of how Hallel was said, and it's in this way that it's appropriate to follow, to say Hallel this way. It's l'chayrin it move on. So the fact that the Rambam says this is difficult to understand. It says Muvur and Mefarshi Ashas, the commentaries on the Gemara that brings this custom say, as the tam from the minig anal b'mei chacham rishonim, the reason for this custom as it was in those times is given mitzad miyut hayidiyah bizmanahu. It was because of the lack of knowledge that there was amongst people in those times. As an given asach einam bekim, there were many that were not proficient in saying Hallel or davening. They couldn't say the whole Hallel on their own. They had to be yetzer. They had to listen and be yetzer with the Hallel by listening to the shliach tzibur, and therefore it was said in this way when they listened and responded Hallelujah. Meaning it's all just a bidi evet, because there's no other choice. They couldn't say Hallel themselves. So hein wie sagt der Rambam? So then how is it that the Rambam says as is roy leilech in der minig? That this is the minig that's the appropriate minig to follow. Unit as roy as jeder soll allein sagen Hallel, and not that it would be even better if everyone could say Hallel themselves. Is the fun gedrungen? So the fact that the Rambam says this proves to us as ladas Rambam that according to the Rambam's opinion, is Afalpi was the Sibas Atakana in Seder Amiris Hallel. Even if it's true that the reason originally why saying Hallel this way was set up, that is given Salib, the Einam Bekim, it was for the people that were not proficient, so they have to just say Hallelujah and that's all. Hat man aber eingestellt im Seder HaAmire and Azal, but nevertheless it was instituted that it's said in such a way as soll durch dem gar nicht fällen bei Hamire euch von de Bekim, that nothing will be lacking if you say Hallel this way just by responding Hallelujah. And even if you are proficient, if you say Hallel this way, this is appropriate and it's the full saying of Hallel. It says wie man wollt allein gesagt ganz Hallel. It's counted as if you said the entire Hallel. That's what you must say here, according to the Rambam, as the Rambam puts it, Boy Roy Leilech, that this is the way Hallel should be said. Now, what's the reason for this? As the time the roof is move on mit divrei harambam in seinem psak halacha in seder amir v'Hallel. The reason why saying Hallel just by responding Hallelujah, how this is counted as saying the full Hallel is understood from what the Rambam says regarding saying Hallel. Where the Rambam says 2 points. Aleph, the aniyas ha'am is Hallelujah. What do the people respond to the Chazan, to the Shliach Tzibur, with the word Hallelujah? Now, nit wie de Deye von andere Rishonim, he's not following the opinion of other Rishonim, as Anias Hallelujah is given nor beim ersten Perik von Hallel. Only in the first Mizmer of Hallel did they respond with Hallelujah, aber bei die andere Parakim fleckt man entferen dem Wort, welche is Roish Oisea Perik. They would respond with the word which was the beginning, the opening word of the other Mizmerim of Hallel. But according to the Rambam, in the entire Hallel, they would respond with the word Hallelujah. That's 1 point. And Bey, this is Farana Mispar Mesuyim von der Aniyas Hallelujah, which is similar in Shneis of Shalaren, there is a specific number of how many times Hallelujah is said. Das heißt, man muss haben alle Kuf Chav Gimel Pamim. You have to have all 123 times that you respond Hallelujah to the Shliach Tzibur saying the Hallel, and when that is done, Dafka responding Hallelujah and fully 123 times, then it's counted as if you actually said the full Hallel, and therefore the Rambam could write on this, Uboy Roy Lelech. This is the appropriate way of how to say Hallel. What's the explanation for this? Why is it these details that will consider it as if you actually said the full Hallel? It's the beer and them. So the explanation for this is regarding the order of how it's done when there's one that's saying Hallel for everyone and the people are listening and responding. So the Meiri on the Gemara asks the following question. Why is it at all necessary to respond anything, to respond with the word Hallelujah? Why can't you be Yaitze just by listening to the Shliach Tzibur saying Hallel, as the halacha is that if you listen, it's as if you're saying, as it is in davening when you listen, and it's as if you say when you listen. So here as well, it should be sufficient just to listen to the Shliach Tzibur saying the Hallel. And the Meiri answers, as Hallel ke'en tfilahu, that Hallel is similar to davening. And by tefillah is a klal, when it comes to davening, the rule is as ein adam moitzi yedei chaverei ba, that you can't be moitzi someone else with the davening. Nor vibalt as einot tefillah gemura, but because Hallel is not fully exactly like davening, it's on a level less than davening itself. Hat men mekel gewen as me darf net sagen ganz Hallel wie bei tefillah. Therefore, there was a leniency that it's not necessary to say the Hallel fully, as it is in davening, that one should daven himself. Nor says genug dem enferen Hallelujah oy chayetze bezeh. But it's enough that you do say Hallel yourself, but you'll only say Hallelujah or some other words according to other opinions that you respond to the Shliach Tzibur. But you must say yourself Hallelujah or respond something, and you can't just be Yaitze with Shemeya Kaina. That's what the Meiri explains. However, the Rambam has a different opinion about this. Von dem aber, was der Rambam sagt, wegen dem Minig uboy roy lelech. If the Rambam says regarding this custom that this is the appropriate way how to say Hallel, is mashma as this is nitakola. It seems from this that the Rambam is not saying here a custom which is a leniency. Varam demelt is move on as es is mer roy nit zu nutzen akola und sagen ganz Hallel, because then it's understood that why rely on this leniency if you can just say the entire Hallel. The Rambam wouldn't say uboy roy lelech. So again, from those words uboy roy lelech, the key words here in the Rambam, we see that responding Hallelujah is l'chatchila, and this is the right way to say Hallel. So based on this, we can say as ladas Rambam, that according to the Rambam's opinion, tu noif dianias Hallelujah, when you respond with the words Hallelujah, what that accomplishes is as es soll verrechnet werden, Punkt, wie man wird allein gesagt ganz Hallel. That this is exactly the reason why we're not relying just on listening to the Shliach Tzibur saying the Hallel, but you respond Hallelujah to every piece of Hallel that he says, because it's only then that it's considered as if you actually said the Hallel yourself. And the source for this and the comparison where we find such a concept is Valderech v'migefint by Anias Amen ef bracha, similar to the concept of answering Amen to a bracha. As Amen achar mevarech, when one answers Amen to a bracha, harezeh kim mevarech, then it's considered to be as if you made the blessing yourself. Which means as follows. B'shas mehert, umahad kavanah to yaitze zayin. When one listens to a bracha, and you have in mind to be yaitze with the one making the bracha, aber men enfit nit ken amen, but you're not answering amen, is menaych yaitze yidei vasai. You're also yaitze by listening to the bracha, shemei kaina. Aber mis nit ken mevarech. It's not considered as if you made the bracha yourself. Aber when is aina amen, is harezeh ken mevarech. When you answer amen, it's as if you made the bracha yourself. And therefore here, similar, according to the Rambam, if it would just be Shemea Ka'ina, you would be Yaitze Hallel, but just by listening. But over here, in order to consider it to be a real full saying of Hallel, Boy Roy Lelech, that you're saying Hallel properly, so you say Hallelujah for every piece, and then it's as if you said the Hallel itself. So the Rebbe clarifies again now, according to this, the difference between the way the Meiri understands this and the way we explain the Rambam. The says that means as follows. Leit Meiri, according to the Meiri's opinion, is that in the Anias Hallelujah, V'Rashi Prakim, answering Hallelujah, or answering the beginning of that Perek, according to the opinions that say that you say other words to respond to the Shliach Tzibur. This is not something that's here unique regarding the saying of the Hallel, that by this it's as if you're saying it. Rather, this is just an additional thing that was instituted in order for a person to have more of a connection to the Hallel that he's saying. To use the words of the Meiri himself, in order to intensify the amount of the joy that the person has in the participation of saying the Hallel. Meaning, really, he's being Yaitze the Hallel here by Shemei Ka'ine, or he has to participate. There's a kula here that he has to say, similar to davening, that you cannot be Yaitze with Shemei Ka'ine, but Chachamu were Mesakin that you should say Hallelujah to have more of a connection to the Hallel that's being said. This heißt, meaning the chiyuv von amiras halal kema yaitze sein b'shmiya midin shemei kaina. You could be yaitze halal by listening with shemei kaina, because it's not fully like davening where we say that you should be davening yourself. It's a level lower, and therefore you're in essence being yaitze halal just by listening. In order that you should also have more joy and more participation in the Hallel. So you participate by actually not just listening, but by responding and saying something in every piece of the Hallel. And that's by responding Hallelujah. So the Hallelujah does not change, though, the nature of your participation in the Hallel. That in the end of the day, it still is the fact that there's a Shliach Tzibur saying, and you're Yaitze by listening. But it's not just a passive listener, you're an active listener where you're responding with Hallelujah, and therefore there's more of a joy, more of an involvement, but it's still as a listener. The Rambam learned however, the Rambam explains this differently. As aniyas Hallelujah, the fact that you respond to every piece of Hallel with the word Hallelujah is nit a zayte ge'inyin b'chiv amiras Hallel. It's not a side thing that was instituted to have more of a level of participation. Not a tail from chiyuv amiras Hallel. This is actually what defines the way you are saying Hallel now. That inyan asimcha sheba chiyuv the Hallel macht a chiyuv as mimuz zogen ganz Hallel. The joy that there is in saying Hallel, and the obligation of saying Hallel, creates an obligation that you should actually say the whole entire Hallel yourself. That's when you are really expressing the praise and the joy that there is in praising Hashem, when you actually say the praise. Und and therefore saying Hallelujah is not just an added detail here, but this now considers it, and it changes the nature of your participation in the Hallel, that it's you saying the Hallel. And therefore the Rambam concludes and says that this is the appropriate minig of how to say Hallel, because when you say Hallelujah for every piece, you're actually saying the Hallel. That's the explanation for the Rambam's opinion in the responding of Hallelujah for each piece in the Hallel. Since responding Hallelujah is accomplishing not just to participate, but it actually considers that now that you are saying the full Hallel is verstandig, so therefore it's understood, as what Mesaken given an Nusach, ausgeklippen a Wort, so therefore Chachamim instituted, and they chose a word, was hat a Sheiches zu ganz und Ganzkeit von Hallel. They chose a word that's connected to the whole Hallel and the fullness of what Hallel represents. Al derech v'anias amen meloshen emes was tutoyt mezol zayin kimevarech. The word amen that's chosen, that means that you're confirming, you're saying that the bracha is true, that word, by answering amen, it's considered as if you said the whole bracha yourself. So too here, they didn't choose one or another word, according to other opinions, that they chose the first word of each one of the prakim of Hallel, but the word Hallelujah, which means praising Hashem, is that word chosen to say again and again, because that expresses what Hallel is about. And when you say that word for every piece, then it's as if you say the entire Hallel. Und Rebbe halt der Rambam, as murat eine gewen Hallelujah al kol davar, und nit Rashi haprakim, that the word Hallelujah is chosen to answer on every piece of Hallel, and not the other parts of the beginning of the Perek of Hallel. Because this word Hallelujah expresses the main and central content of what Hallel is about, to praise Hashem. Now another detail, going back now to why the Rambam brings the siman of the connection to the life of Aaron, that it's 123, as was explained before, that it has to be all 123 times. So now based on this we understand that as the bechuvin from the Seder is, the purpose here, or the intention here of this order is that you're not just responding Hallelujah to have more of a level of participation, more of an involvement, but it's actually considered as if you're saying the full Hallel is moving, so it's understood as the two fadern sich alle kuf chov gimel pamim aniyas Hallelujah. And it's necessary to respond all 123 times with the word Hallelujah. Was the Fa bringt the Rambam the Simin Kanal Siv Beis. And therefore the Rambam brings this Simin, implying that it's one, just like by Aaron, it's one lifetime of one person. So too over here, it's all 123 times, that when you say all of them, then it's like you said the entire fullness of the whole Hallel. That's the halacha that we can take out of what the Rambam says by bringing the Simin of the lifetime of Aaron. But now here the Rebbe goes on to explain the connection to Aaron HaKohen and what his life actually was about. Like then wird man euch verstehen die Scheiches von Haniyas Hallelujah shel Ha'am zu Aaronen und euch zu Shneisov shel Aaron. We'll understand the connection of saying Hallel and the people answering Hallelujah and Hallel to Aaron HaKohen and to the lifetime of Aaron, to the years of his life. And Yonish shel Aaron is, what was Aaron HaKohen's life about? Oyev Shalom v'reidev Shalom, love peace, always chasing peace, love all people, and brings them close to Torah, which means the Achtus von alle Yidden. Aaron HaKohen's life represents the unity of all Yidden. Und der in Yishal Aaron wird ausgedrückt in Torah bekasher im Minyan Shneis Chayav. It's expressed in Torah by the number of his life that the Torah says. Because b'shas Masei, when Aaron HaKohen passes away, when it is given ben kuf chav gimel shana, when he came to the fullness of his life at 123 years old, steht in Pasuk, the Pasuk says, Vayivku goyme kol beis Yisrael, that all Yidden were mourning Aaron HaKohen's passing. And this term kol says only by Aaron. On Chazal zanim mevayir. So Chazal explain about this, as in them is Aaron given afilu mervi Moshe. In this aspect, Aaron was even greater than Moshe, v'arim is given reidev shalom chulu, because Aaron HaKohen was always the one that brought peace. And therefore, and das ist the Sheiches from the Aniyas Hallelujah zu Shneisov shel Aaron. So based on this, we understand what's the connection of responding Hallelujah 123 times, saying Hallel to the life of Aaron. While, so the connection here is, and first in the brackets the Rebbe brings a additional connection, Neisef Lezeh. Additionally, we can say was die Sibbe von der Takanes gewähnt zu lieb die Einam Bekiyim. The reason for this that was instituted, that you can respond with the word Hallelujah and be yetzer the full saying of Hallel by this, who was it made for? It was for those people that are not proficient. Bedugmas, Aaron was given Oyeves Abrius. What does Oyeves Abrius mean? Who did he love? Including those people that are creations in the world, meaning they have no other greatness to them other than the fact that Hashem created them, and they're far from Torah, far from serving Hashem, and he brought them close to Torah. So too here, the takana of saying Hallelujah is making saying Hallel available even for those that can't read and can't say Hallel themselves. That's one connection. But based on what we learned here before, we now understand the connection is that Oivtu from the takana is, what's the whole accomplishment here of this saying Hallelujah again and again? As anstatt jeder Yid soll sagen Hallel for sich, then instead of every Yid saying Hallel for himself, werden alle Yidden nesachet in ein Amiras Hallel. All Yidden are unified together with the Shliach Tzibur saying Hallel, and everybody listening and everybody responding together Hallelujah on every piece of Hallel that's said. So this is a great way of saying Hallel in great achdus and unity by everybody saying Hallel together. So therefore this saying of Hallel is connected to the life of Aaron. Additionally, Vibalt is the Aniyas tun of Oif. Es soll sein, Kilo jeder is ganz Hallel, kommt es, as das ist ein Achtus Amitis. Since, as explained, that when everybody responds with Hallelujah, what this accomplishes is, it's as if everybody is actually saying Hallel, not only listening, with Shemeya Ka'ina, but actually saying the entire Hallel together. So now this is the actual true unity. And the reason is, Vem is blois Yetzer and Eifem von Shemeya Ka'ina, if we were to say that the Shliach Tzibur is saying, but everybody else is just listening, is das noch nicht kein Shleimus Achtus, because so then that's not the absolute unity between everyone saying Hallel now. Weil Afapi as alle seine Yetzer mit dem selben Amiris Hallel, even if it's true that everybody is being Yaitse, saying Hallel at the same time together, is the Saber in Anayfin, was the Kiyam mitzvahs Hallel is nicht gleich Parliament. But nevertheless, the fulfillment of the mitzvah of saying Hallel is not the same by everybody. Einer, the Schatz, one, meaning the Shliach Tzibor, is Mekayim Dorech Hamira. He's actually saying Hallel. Und alle andere sind bloß Shemea Mekabel von der Schatz und Yetzi Dechevasam durch seine Mire. They're only listening to his saying of Hallel, and they're being Yetzi by him saying the Hallel. So they're sort of on a level lower. So it's not everybody saying the Hallel together on the same level. However, now as explained before, according to the Rambam, durch die Aniyas von Hallelujah, when you respond Hallelujah to every part of Hallel, what's accomplished here is, as alle haben dem Inyan HaHallel auf demselben Eufen, Amiras Hallel, that everybody is participating together in responding Hallelujah, and everybody is saying together Hallel on the same level. Und das Gufe is in an Eufen shel Achdus, and this is being done in a manner of unity. The ein Amire shel Hashatz is the Amire from Kol Ha'am v'Zenen Einen. You have the Shliach Tzibur. He actually says all the words of Hallel, and then when everybody is listening and responding with the word Hallelujah, everybody is saying Hallel together with the one saying of the Shliach Tzibur saying Hallel. So this is the absolute unity of all Yidden in saying Hallel by responding Hallelujah. And therefore it's connected to the lifetime of Aron HaKayim, which represents Oyev Shalom, B'Reidev Shalom, the unity of Yidden. Al Pikul Anal, based on all of this, Yeshleima, we can also add and say, as das zeich der Bier, b'derech Simen v'remes, this is an explanation as a hint in a Shaila Klolis and Rambam, in a general question of the Rambam. Havasa the Rambam reingestellte halachis von Hallel in Hilchas Chanukah. Why did the Rambam choose to place the halachis of Hallel specifically in Hilchas Chanukah? There are other times a year that we say Hallel as well, so why specifically in Hilchas Chanukah? L'chayr is Mekayman and Hilchas Tefillah. It would be more appropriate to place it in Hilchas Tefillah. But based on what we explained, it's understood. Based on what we explained, it comes out as follows. As eine von die Ikri is the Geinyanim in Amiris Hallel, that according to this custom, in saying Hallel by responding Hallelujah, and as the Rambam says, this is the appropriate way of saying Hallel, is the Achdus for Yidden. Saying Hallel this way expresses the unity of Yidden in a unique fashion. Das was all Yidden zusammen stehen in a matzah von Shalom betachlis, that all Yidden together are with an absolute harmony and unity. Bis to an Achdus Shlema, absolute oneness, all being Yetze in saying Hallel with the one Shliach Tzibur that's saying it. Und das is the Siyum v'chaisim von Hakol Heilach Acharachitu von Hilchas Chanukah. And this is how the Rambam concludes, and everything follows the conclusion, in the halachas of Chanukah, as the Rambam concludes, as Kol HaTorah nitna lasais shalom ba'olam. The entire Torah was given to bring peace into the world, and the Rambam chooses this as the siyum of Hilchas Chanukah, which is connected to the theme and content of Chanukah, as explained in another place, and therefore the Rambam here brings Hallel, which is said in this manner of absolute unity and peace. The Rebbe concludes, the Gemara Zokt. The Gemara tells us that Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu lasais Chizkiya Mashiach. Hashem desired, wanted, to make or appoint Chizkiya to be Mashiach, to redeem Yidden. Nor, and the reason why it didn't happen is because after many miracles occurred and he didn't sing for Hashem, the Rebbe is in it given der was of girl given the Yidden. That was the reason why that he didn't end up being the one to redeem Yidden. From this we understand that it's much more than the negative as it happened by Chizkiah, that he was not appointed as Mashiach, but in the good sense that when one will sing for Hashem is move on as the inyan fun amiras hal v'shirav nissen, to praise and to sing to Hashem for miracles that he performs is mekarev u'mevi degola. This brings closer redemption. By learning and clarifying this halacha that we just learned here regarding saying Hallel, and also through action, which is the main point. To praise Hashem for all the great miracles that we see Hashem performs for Yidden. That we see clearly that it's only Hashem's hand that does all this. It's only Hashem that gives us the power for everything that we do. So by singing to Hashem and praising Him, we will merit B'kodev Mamash speedily in our days to the Amiras, Ashira HaAsiris, the Lasad Lavai, the 10th song that we will say when Mashiach comes, Nachme, Boifim from Shir Chadash, on the level of it being a new song on a higher level, as it's brought here in the Ha'are, Lashon Zachar, and great level of song, Begula Amitzvah Shlema Al Yedei Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the arrival of the Gula through Mashiach Tzidkenu.